I want to start with a feeling that nobody is really talking about directly right now because it's hard to bring it up at dinner without sounding like you're either panicking or auditioning for a documentary. It's the feeling of standing in a grocery store and doing math that you didn't used to have to do. It's the feeling of a job that's technically fine, but it feels less solid than what it did 3 years ago because you just never know. It's the feeling of having watched your parents' generation make financial moves at your age, like buy a house, start a business, put money away, and watch it grow, and thinking, oh, I'm doing everything right. But why is my math different? Where's my extra stuff? It's just hard enough for you to survive, right? Well, that's not panic. It's not depression. It's something more like the map that you were given doesn't match the territory that you're standing in right now. If you've ever driven for Uber and you used their Google map, you get it because there's a tree where the driveway is supposed to be. And so now you're so confused, you just sit there stress eating the food that you're supposed to be delivering because, well, why not? Because you're not going to get paid for it now. Well, that's what this show's about. Figuring out how to navigate without the old map and building the kind of life that holds up regardless of what comes next. I'm Andrea Oliver. Welcome to the Ready Society. What most people are experiencing right now is not a personal failure and it's not irrational anxiety. We're literally living through major structural shifts that have happened so quickly and so suddenly that we didn't get to prepare for them. Our entire world is fundamentally changed now, and most people's lives are not designed for the new reality. There's three major shifts that you need to know about if you're going to steady your cart before you spook your horse. Wow, that sounded weird. I don't even know what that meant. I'm going to cover all three of these in the next episode because they deserve some real time, but let me give you the shape of them so that you have some context for everything that we're going to talk about. The first one is the labor market. There used to be an implicit contract between employers and employees. It was, you give us your loyalty and all your best years, and we'll give you stability, predictable advancement, and eventually something like a pension. That contract was never universal, but it was real enough for long enough that it became a template that everybody measured their situation against. And that contract has been dissolving for about 50 years, and it's accelerating right now. The result is a labor market where the employee is expected to carry all the risks now that the employers used to absorb for them, and where most people are still operating as if the old deal is in place. The second one's financial. The cost of three things that matter most to household stability is housing, healthcare, and education. But that has all outpaced wage growth for decades, and not by a small amount. That gap is significant enough that those moves that your parents made at your age that felt normal are now either difficult or impossible. And it's not because you're doing worse than they did. It's because the math has genuinely changed. And the third one is geopolitical. The international order that produced cheap goods and stable supply chains for the last few decades is being renegotiated. None of this is surprising in retrospect, because all of it was visible to anybody paying close attention. But what is surprising is how little people's actual decisions and career choices and savings habits, housing assumptions, how little we have adapted in response. These three things together produce that uneasy feeling that you're having. It's going to get better now that you can see that the map doesn't match the territory you're trying to navigate. So when you have information and you can act on it, you naturally get calmer and more steady and are able to make better choices. So if the feeling is the result of actual structural shifts, then the response is never going to be just have a better attitude about it or more optimism, because you can't just be thankful your way out of it. And don't get me started on manifestation. The response is adaptation, specific, practical adaptation, building resilience that doesn't depend on anything staying stable, because nothing ever stays the same. Somebody said that one. I think it was a lyric. The only thing that stays the same is that everything changes. Anyway, that's what this show is. Like, what to build, who to know, what to learn, what to have, and in that order for reasons that we will definitely get into. I wrote a book about it. It's free, no email, no sign up, no nothing. It's just there. The link is in the show notes. I'll remind you at the end of every episode. Once again, everything the show covers is in the book and more in depth with more specificity. Anyway, this part's just my soapbox, and hopefully it's going to be a useful soapbox for you. I want to be clear about something before we go any further. I'm not standing here having solved everything. I'm not on the other side of the shift looking back at you from a place of complete preparation and zero anxiety. Like, I'm standing in it too. My household is in it. I have done some of this work and some of it I've not done. And that gap between those two is really real. Like, I have the beans and the rice stockpile and about 24 income streams, but I have some weak places that we're going to talk about later. I wrote the book because I had to figure this out, and in the process of figuring it out, I turned it into a framework. But having a framework and living the framework are two different things. And I know the chapter on community. I know that when I sat down and counted all the people that would actually show up for me in a genuine emergency, that number was lower than what I would have predicted before I counted. This is not inspiration content. It's not a success story. It's a real account of what it looks like to build practical resilience in an actual person with actual gaps between where you are and where you want to be. Because I'm definitely not there yet. I'm working on it, just like everyone. You're going to hear about the things that worked and the things that didn't. And the things I've been meaning to do for 6 months and I haven't even done yet. Because that's what's real, and real is the only version of this that's actually useful. So here's your one thing for this week. Name the feeling, not to someone else necessarily, but to yourself. Write down the specific version of it that brought you to this show. The grocery store math. Was it the job that feels different? The financial move that your parents made that you can't replicate? Whatever it is, write it down specifically enough that you could read it back to somebody and they would know exactly what you meant. That specificity matters because vague anxiety is hard to respond to. Specific diagnosis is where practical response becomes possible. You can't build toward a target you haven't named. So write that down. We're going to build from there. Feel free to binge over to the next episode. The first few all kind of go together. I only broke them up so that you can have snacks and potty breaks. Unless you're one of those weirdos that take your phone and your snacks to the potty break. Actually, you know what? Quick true story. I have a cousin who used to take a fan, a blanket, a cigarette, a drink, and a book all to go do number 2. So if you're listening and this is you, I'm not sorry. I'm not going to name you, but I'm also not sorry. The book's free, AndreaOliver.com/no one's coming. That link is in the show notes. No email, no sign up, no nothing. Just go get the book if you want to. Go a little bit deeper. And if you have thoughts, feedback, questions, or whatever, I genuinely want to hear from you. This show is new and I'm figuring it out so I know what's useful as I go. Your feedback is how I know if I'm on the right track. Contact info in the show notes. I'll see you in episode 2.